Welcome back. Well, if you have, if you have been following my journey of healing, and if you have been following the first 6 chapters, welcome to chapter 7. It's the last chapter of part 1 of my book, part 1 is called Anything Dear. Part 2 has a different name, but we'll get to that after this chapter. This is chapter 7, Kill Phil, the story of destruction. If you're new here, there are 6 videos covering previous chapters of part 1. So if you want to check those out to make sense of this chapter, please do so. And other than that, let's just get started. So, last chapter of part 1, Anything Dear. Chapter 7, Kill Phil, the story of destruction. Wherever I turned, I would see death, and everywhere I turned, I would see them all. Me, every version of me, just laying there. All of these different peas, lifeless, not being able to stand up again and continue fighting. The ones who lost, now the lucky ones, being able to leave this earth, finally, since they lost and died trying not to. Now being released from the magnetic pull of Earth's core. Green with envy, I couldn't blame them, because I was feeling the same. Having the urge to leave, but for me, Earth's core wouldn't let me go. And so I saw all of these versions of myself, the ones that fell and the ones that fought harder and the hardest. But life, the game, won over and over again. As far as my eyes could reach, I could see and feel them roaming around in the realm of the forgotten ones. As far as my eyes could reach, there they were, tortured bodies and souls, no possibility of resurrection. I knew the only way out is through, and so I took a step forward, stepping over the first body, the first dead version of me. There he was, that 10-year-old kid that drowned in his tears and choked on that lump in his throat because no one seemed to care. Drowned headfirst in a pool of sorrow and despair, eyes wide open, and those lines on the forehead that wouldn't and couldn't carve in deeper, screaming, "Please help." I kissed his forehead, hugged him, closed his eyes, and kept walking, still feeling his sadness and the fear of being alone forever, and never finding a true place where he'd belong. But soon enough I would find the next dead version of myself, another one who tried and failed, one who fought and lost. Philip of 13 years, hiding behind that burnt tree, revealing both their skeletons, stripped away of everything. Being ashamed of turning gay and not knowing what to do about it, besides to not become a fag and constantly being afraid that this phase would never come to an end either. Being ashamed of having to have an answer about his sexuality that he himself was still figuring out. Having to name it so others needn't be afraid of him in sports, having to put a name on it because others have a right to know so they could protect themselves and evaluate how they would need to act around him. Stripped away of everything and left feeling guilty of not being like the others. I saw all the broken pieces of his already broken heart, reflecting on all the times he participated in his own mockery, figuring it would hurt less if he laughed with them. To a point where it dawned on him that they must be right, that the many surpassed the few, and so he understood their laughter and hazing and all the punishments, because he started to see the shame that others saw in him too. I slowly walked towards him, covered him with dirt, collected all the pieces and put them in my pocket. I wished him well, apologized that I couldn't get to him sooner, and continued walking. With every small step I took, I still could feel his pain, still feeling it by the pieces cutting into the leg and piercing me deeply, slowly filling my pocket with blood and his memories. I could still hear all the laughs and what they all said too. All of them. The heat was getting worse and the smoke harder to see through. The grounds became more difficult to walk on, but there I saw this pillory, and I knew it was meant for me to see. That wooden structure in the middle of nowhere. There I saw the barely adult version of me, the hanged man executed by hanging from a noose, strangled by his own interests and passions, died of shame, wanting to do what made him happy, following his artistic side, died of shame of wanting to dance, to sing, to paint and write. There he was, swinging silently in the hot air, wearing worn-out shoes, broken toes showing, stomped on by others. Strangled by that cord, struck by all those tens, hundreds, thousands of pencil arrows, surrounded by all the written stories he never completed. I could see the tears vaporizing on his cheeks, and I could see all the bruises of taking the punches and kicks, covering his body too. I went there, stepping in the footprints of the now disappeared silent watchers, and cut the cord. I placed him next to the pillory, untied his hands on his back, laid him down to rest. I started crying looking at him, but I needed to leave because it was too soon, too real to see. And so I took the cord, made it my bracelet, and took another step. I lifted my head, and there I saw something else. He wasn't alone. There were more. Next to him, another me, another version, the one that died because he was failing classes, falling back and losing connection to classmates, friends he liked so much. I saw him there holding all the good memories, pictures of wishing to reconnect, the one that needed to adapt to a new class, another home, where all the spots were already taken too, trying to find his place and love that everybody else had already found. Wishing to be able to take back what he did out of panic, because he was afraid of losing them all, and feeling guilty because then he actually did. And so he died of guilt too, because he didn't have a bad friend, but because he believed he was him, and that everything he got, he deserved. But right there, covering him, hugging him, was another me. That version of me that fell in love too quickly, that Philip that would move houses a fifth time, for someone he loved, but also for someone who couldn't love him back. The one who learned that love might include it's not considered cheating when you're allowed to watch. The one who wasn't sex enough for having sex with, and the one who learned that he was not desirable enough to find safety in physicality. And so, those three versions were soothing each other, as in life, so in death, trying to protect each other from the pain and hurt they knew so well. They all were there, comforting each other, melting into each other with all they had in common. I left them there. They finally had their trinity, harmony, balance, and bliss. They were together, even if it meant not being able to enjoy it. The ground beneath my feet got muddier by the steps I took. I started to sink in, but I had to go further because I could see the next the next me. Torn apart, limb to limb, and squashed by the burden of saying no. The early 20 version that was feeling guilty of not wanting to be a go-getter, to go and get those free samples, and of not wanting to eat that red meat that turned brown through the lens of a colorblind, and not wanting what was served on the table. The one who died of shame of saying, no, it wasn't me, and being denied belief of such, and still being punished for things. Because being there when things happen counts just as much. I sank my head, and right there was his brother, the late 20s, P. The one who still hadn't found his true passion, still struggling with money, struggling to juggle 3 jobs and a full-time university career. That version that felt guilty for saying, I don't know, and creating stories that did not resemble him at all. That version that would feel guilty for not finding another outlet than punching holes into walls, throwing plates and drinking glasses out of the window, or hammering his head against the doors in his apartment. The version that would do anything to not feel and to avoid, to suppress and to deny all. I walked over there, tried to roll over that mountain of no's, unsuccessfully. So I took his hand, shook it softly and laid it down again, continuing my quest. And here I am, here I ended up, the last version of me, tasting the iron of blood in my mouth and being tired of fighting. The last version of me still standing but ashamed of doing so. The last version of me, ashamed of not knowing how to conquer life and only being known for the one who tried and the one who didn't succeed. So here I am, here I ended up, only to wait for that version to be erased too. To fall too, to finally join all his brothers, his other versions of himself. So here I am, this last version of me that tried avoiding everything, people, situations and feelings. That last version that couldn't express the anger and frustration and the loneliness the way he felt them. And so I would smoke the green, drink the black and snort the white. I would pop the M, take the R and swallow the V too. I would mix and match, trying to find the perfect dose that would mask all the ailments. Finding the perfect alchemist potion that would alleviate all that pulled me down towards Earth's core, the place to witness my shame. And so in this game, this chess of life, that game of making it to the other side, me, the last pawn, the peasant to others, I stood there waiting for my fate. And I was ready because no matter the cause in love or war, I was this exchangeable piece that mattered nothing. This anchored me, keeping me in place, kept me stuck and haunted me by all those demons, all those memories of all the previous versions of me. And so for the last time, before my final death, I was looking for help again. The help to self-destruct in 3, 2, 1. Because life was supposed to be this warmth that one could feel on the inside. The internal sun that would and could never be gone, even when it was time for it to go to sleep. But life for me was more reminiscent of the moon, that distant, grayish and icy reflection of itself, of the sun. I somehow knew and still felt that this internal light would be somewhere, but still I could not find it. And so I figured life could never give me what I wanted and needed. And I figured I could never pay tribute to life in a way it deserved. So I awaited death. I awaited death when I almost drowned in Lake Zurich. And I awaited death when I got hit by the tram in Basel and got dragged along with it. I was waiting and ready for it to come, but it never did. It left me here on these burnt grounds. Even death turned its back on me and showed me that I wasn't welcome there either. It was never about me killing myself, to kill even the last part of me, that I came to loathe bluntly, to kill Phil. It was more that I wouldn't have minded if he died. But eventually death came to me. It arrived, though not in the way I expected it to show itself, but nevertheless I was happy it did. It arrived as the death of my belief system and what I held close to my heart. It arrived as the death of the part of me that was clinging to the past and repeating it. It meant the beginning of something new, and it meant the death of anything dear. Yeah, and so this concludes part 1, anything dear. And just as you just heard the last sentence, and it meant the death of anything dear. The death of anything dear is also the name of part 2 of the book. And in part 2, it's all about the learnings from my past and how I was able to change my perspective on things. And anything dear was more the hard and tough times that I needed to look at, and everything I needed to uncover to actually be able to turn it around and make sense of things, why things happened and how it just kept going and going. So yeah, part 2, the death of anything dear, is a way more pleasant part of the book. Yeah. And I decided to not tell you the title of part 3 yet, because I just want to keep it for myself a little bit longer, but it's already settled. It's funny because I have the titles of chapters and everything come first, and then all the pieces of the stories come together. So yeah, let me know if anything of these chapters resonated with you, because I know everybody has problems, but not everybody has someone who listens. And so I want to thank you for listening to my story, and especially part 1, the hard part. And I will let you know when I'm ready to share part 2. It's basically finished. Editing stuff needs to be done, but other than that, so you don't have to wait too long. But yeah, it's much more positive, because the healing journey for me personally worked wonders, and taking my time to heal and analyze these things. So yeah, this is the past, and I'm happy with the now and how my life is now. So I want to share my learnings and how I was able to get to this point in part 2, the death of anything dear. So I hope I see you then. Yeah, thank you. Until then, have a nice time and stay safe. Bye.